The drama that Trump has begun surrounding Ukraine has taken another dramatic turn with the shifting tectonics, with these plate tectonics of Washington and the rest of the world. It's as if something seismic is happening. And Donald Trump's return to the international stage has been marked by this blend of erratic diplomacy, calculated posturing, particularly in his dealings with Russia and Ukraine, and his latest statements made in the wake of this call with Putin have raised alarm bells across Europe, particularly regarding his willingness to negotiate Ukraine's NATO membership away in exchange for a so-called peace deal. It is extraordinary. It's like having a neighbour come along and say, "Well, you don't need this and you don't need that in your own house." In contrast, the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has tried to reinforce Britain's unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty and its future in NATO, despite Trump's ambiguous signals and veiled threats. And Trump's call with Putin was, by all accounts, a diplomatic event that lowered tensions, but at the expense of Ukraine's long-term security. And his assertion that Russia would never accept Ukraine in NATO, and his willingness to initiate direct negotiations without Kyiv's involvement, echoed the appeasement politics of past eras. His Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth, added to the uncertainty by openly dismissing the restoration of Ukraine's pre-2014 borders as unrealistic, a signal that Trump's administration may push Kyiv towards territorial concessions and towards something that resembles the appalling Minsk agreements. Such developments, unsurprisingly, triggered alarm in European capitals, and Ukraine, under the leadership of Zelenskyy, has made it clear that any settlement that does not restore its sovereignty is unacceptable. European allies, particularly the UK, Germany and France, have reinforced this principle that there can be no discussion about Ukraine's future without Ukraine at the table. As long as sovereignty is guaranteed, there are many variations that can be applied to particular areas like Donetsk and Luhansk and so on. Against this, and indeed Crimea, against this backdrop, Keir Starmer spoke with President Zelenskyy today, ahead of the Munich Security Conference, providing a much-needed counterweight to Trump's overtures to Moscow. And in his conversation with Zelenskyy, Starmer made several key assurances, three key assurances. One, that Britain's support for Ukraine is concrete, that he reiterates that Britain's backing would endure for as long as is needed, reaffirming Britain's commitment to both lethal aid and security guarantees. Two, that Ukraine's role in negotiations is assured and that there could be no talks without Ukraine about Ukraine, directly pushing against Trump's implicit suggestion that a US-Russia deal could be brokered over Kyiv's head. And three, that NATO membership and a strategic alignment are both on the cards. And in an unmistakable message to both Trump and to Putin, Starmer reaffirmed the UK's commitment to Ukraine's irreversible path to NATO membership, and a pledge made last year at the Washington summit. So it is extraordinary that America chooses to ignore something that was brokered in its own state. Navigating a world in which Trump may flex his muscles, his digits, to get a headline, presents a unique challenge for Britain's foreign policy. When it's headlines which are more important than reality, yes, Britain has the same problem. But Trump seems to encapsulate that in a way that no other leader does. The UK has historically balanced its special relationship with the US while maintaining strong European security, a strong European security presence. And Starmer's approach thus far has been one of strategic reassurance, ensuring that Britain is a pillar of support for Ukraine while avoiding unnecessary confrontation with Trump's administration. And this balancing act was evident in David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary's engagement with Vice President J.D. Vance. And and despite US attempts to downplay Ukraine's NATO ambitions, Lamy has reinforced and will continue to reinforce Britain's stance, asserting that Ukraine must be at the centre of any diplomatic resolution. Trump's oscillation between aggressive nationalism and transactional diplomacy has forced European leaders to develop a more self-sufficient security posture, and his former national security advisor has already warned that Trump is laying the groundwork for a NATO withdrawal, a move that could destabilise the entire European security architecture. The UK, along with France and Germany, has thus been increasingly vocal about ensuring a unified response to Russian aggression, regardless of what comes out of Washington. For his part, President Zelenskyy has made it abundantly clear that Ukraine will not be sidelined in discussions about its own future, and addressing the Munich Security Conference, he dismissed suggestions that Ukraine should accept a ceasefire on Russian terms, insisting that the war will only end when Ukraine's sovereignty is fully restored, and his insistence on maintaining direct coordination with both European allies and the US signals Kyiv's intention to avoid being boxed into a deal that benefits Moscow at its own expense. So as tensions rise over Ukraine's place in NATO and the prospect of a negotiated settlement, Britain's stance will be crucial. Starmer's reassurances to Zelenskyy serve as an important diplomatic statement. Britain will not waver in its commitment to Ukraine, even as Ukraine seeks to redefine the West's position on the conflict. And the challenge now is whether the UK, along with its European partners, can maintain a cohesive and resolute approach that withstands Washington's unpredictability. With Russia's aggression continuing unabated, the next few months will prove decisive in shaping the course of both Ukraine's future and the broader transatlantic alliance.